Hey, what's going on, everybody? Today is May 30th, 2024, and you are listening and watching the Daily AI Show live. And today we have Beth, Jimmy, Carl, Andy, and I am Brian. And today it's about data analytics, but not just data analytics and where it is currently today, but it's more about having a conversation about what we potentially can see coming. What is the future of data analytics? If you looked at the thumbnail there. Oh, wrong. I'm about to show the wrong one for tomorrow. Data analytics is dead and AI is the killer. So I'm the one to put that on there. So let me just tell you what I meant by that. And then I'd love to just have more of a conversation. And again, today's conversation isn't necessarily like, oh, this is this thing that you can go buy and do right now. But a lot of what we try to do on this show is say, hey, even if it can't be done today, we want to put an emphasis on the fact that we feel it is coming because A plus B equals C, right? And so a lot of times in this show, we try to take our collective experience and say, well, given these parameters, I feel like, or we collectively feel like, and sometimes we disagree, which way it'll go. So data analytics is dead, AI is the killer. What did I mean by that? Well, I've been having conversations with you guys on the back channels and stuff. And because of my background prior to working at Scaled, where I work now, I work for a business intelligence consulting company. And I wasn't a data analyst. I mean, I was a data analyst, but I wasn't writing SQL code or anything. We had really smart people in our office who did that. And I worked a lot on actually the LinkedIn strategy and things like that. So I was sort of adjacent, but around it all the time. Sort of like I do in sales consulting right now. I don't do sales consulting, but I sort of do on the AI side of things. So to get to the point here, what we did was we work with companies, and I've mentioned companies like this before, but just for reference, ThoughtSpot, Qlik, that's Qlik. These are big industry leaders. Of course, we know that Google got in when they bought
Looker.
What is it? Looker, thank you. I was going to say Looper, and I knew that wasn't right. Looker, and now they've rebranded. I don't even think it says Looker anymore. It might still. That was more of a basic data analytics. And we know Salesforce is in there, right, with Tableau and things like that. Okay. Well, what you get with data analytics right now, as you would imagine, in 2018, the big deal was that we were more or less moving to the cloud. And it seems silly to think like, wow, we were just doing that in 2018. Well, for big enterprise companies, yes, because that was really the turning point where big companies were starting to trust that their data was secure in the cloud. But we still had companies where we were deploying on-site assets in data rooms where that data resided on-prem. And then there was people who had on hybrid situations, right? So now, okay, great. Now it's on cloud. That opens up things. So ThoughtSpot, for instance, they'd say, great, there's information in this data lake, or enter a term for that. Let's just say Snowflake or one of these big players in that space. And you might have 20, 30, 40 different types of spreadsheets, let's call them. I use one of our former, or it might be still a client, but anyway, I work with them, was the Port of Tampa Bay. Huge operation. I mean, massive operation. I learned so much from them. And you can imagine everything from the logistics side, which in it itself is billions and billions of rows of data, like weekly, like just streams. If you just looked at your screen, the data just comes in, right? From where is this Connex? What's in the Connex? Is it held up in the Panama Canal, right? You could go on and on and on. Weather data overlaid on top of this, and so on and so forth. And where are the trains? Is it backed up in the port? Everything. These are all numbers, though. These are all numbers and stats. There's percentage of incoming weather. We might need to increase our output to put the cold stuff in the cold lockers at the port because the train can't get to them, right? These are all logistic type, very complex things. But because of the cloud and because of infrastructure, we're able to use like synthetic keys, what were called synthetic keys, overlay this data on top of each other. And now companies were able to get really, really good insights looking at multiple previously siloed, disparate types of data. Stuff that typically in the past couldn't be seen together because it would have been very, very difficult to overlay that and get some sort of cohesive view. So now this all trickles down to the boardrooms and the executive boardrooms and people like Andy, who we know is it was executive many times. And, you know, maybe Andy at Dave & Buster's back in the day or at FitAid, you know, Andy may have sat in a room, right? And he's like, okay, this is a 45-minute meeting and I need the State of the Union, right? I need the sit rep if he were in the military. And people like me or anybody else might come in and go, okay, and I'm going to show Andy an executive level dashboard, and it's going to have some gauges on it. It's going to do that. And my whole goal there in being in that room is to not waste Andy's time and answer all his questions. I want Andy as my CXO, right, to walk away and say, I have a good understanding of it. Or if he had follow-up questions, that I was able to go and do that. In the old days, if he had a follow-up question, you were a data analyst, he just ruined my day because there was no way to drill down into the information on the data analytics, right? So Danny would have said like, well, I see that, but what about this? And I would have had a headache for the rest of the day, right? That was the old school way. In the new school way, because of complex data analytics and these tools like ThoughtSpot, we could immediately drill down in the room. Okay, that's where we stand today. But what I want to talk about is, where is this going with AI? Because forget just the data, forget the numbers. What if the future is what I've sort of termed hollow mod analytics, which is just hollow as in holistic, mod as in modular or multimodal. And if you put those two things together, what happens when the future company, when FitAid in the future, just as use an example, since Andy, you've talked about it, Andy, before, is able to say, okay, I'm the CXO, I'm sitting down in this room and I have questions. And I go, okay, Andy, what I've done is I've pulled together the last 15 conversations we've had, both with prospects and clients, our distributors, our logistics team, because we got to get FitAid into it. And I'm sure I'm oversimplifying this, Andy. But it also brings in snippets of the last 4 video calls, but not the whole video, just from minutes 2 to minutes 4. I also have all the logistics of all your products moving around the country, as we would. I also have all the typical data stuff, but I also have all the data that might be in PDFs, audio files, and so on and so forth. This is what I mean by holistic multimodal analytics, because what I would hope to bring in the future to Andy or anybody in that situation is to say, I now can give you a very nuanced, detailed look of how to get predictive and prescriptive analytics going into the future for FitAid by looking at all types of data. And I believe that AI is going to get us there because we can see it coming. So I know that was a lot of intro. I get it, but I wanted to lay the ground rules of like sort of where I get excited and see this, because I truly, truly believe this is the future of data analytics. And that's to say, it's not just numbers, guys, anymore. So I don't know, Andy, did I get anywhere close to the type of stuff that you used to deal with?
Yeah, I want to embellish the history a little bit and go a little further back.
Do it.
But I want to also I'll challenge that this is not about the future. This is the present.
Okay.
Because just on May 21st, like last week, the University of Chicago Booth School of Business published research that used GPT-4, not GPT-4o, but just GPT-4, and they gave it just something very simple. It's financial statements for multiple companies and a prompt to behave like an analyst to process that financial information. GPT-4's insights outperformed professional analysts in predicting future earnings trends, despite not having access to any qualitative data. And that's what you're leading to, because the AI can ingest not just the financial statements, but all kinds of unstructured data, including, articles and sentiment on X and all of this other stuff, and incorporate that into its analysis. The study also found that the model's ability to do that came from analysis of trends, ratios, and economic reasoning, not from its training data. It didn't possess the understanding based on earlier training. All right, so this is now. You can use GPT-4o and any other of the frontier models. You can use those and just feed them a whole bunch of information and ask them to make predictions about what the future course of earnings would be for that company, or what the future of any number of other attributes or factors might be. So it's now, not the future. We are already there. Now I want to jump back to the beginning of my professional career. I graduated from business school in 1983. In 1981, the IBM personal computer came out. Now, prior to that, if you were a financial analyst in a company, and I trained to become a financial analyst at business school, we did case study after case study after case study, and we had to do analysis of the financial performance data that was put into each case with a calculator. All right. There were no spreadsheets. And so we're there with a calculator and making handwritten notes. So now when I get into the business world and I joined a major, New York Stock Exchange company, I was attached to the chairman and I was like a special assistant to him, and I did financial analysis. Now, the first thing that came out was a thing called the spreadsheet, which was VisiCalc. And then in 1983, the Lotus 1-2-3 spreadsheet came out. It wasn't until 1985 that Microsoft came out with Excel. Okay, so right as I'm coming into the business marketplace, financial analysis and data analysis for decision support to the executives of this major conglomerate are all being done, by hand and on ledger sheets, including financial statements. And there are big mainframe computers, obviously, that would generate the accounting records based on all of that stuff. But then we got to business intelligence many decades later. We're talking about a 40-year span here. It was 40 years ago that spreadsheets came out. Now, spreadsheets made it possible to, do much more sophisticated calculations and, functions and formulas and macros. And there were lots of things that made it faster and easier for the data analyst inside a corporation who's working with that company's data. Business intelligence made it so that you didn't have to be an expert Excel user anymore. Business intelligence systems put a layer between structured data being collected by the company, think largely numbers, right? So these all go into a single database. And then on top of that is a UI that allows, through a browser, allows a business user like me to fashion not just analysis based on multiple dimensions that are from multiple tables that are joined together in this unified data structure. And that's what you were talking about, this overlay process. Sure. That's a SQL process called join in a SQL relational database. Yep. Okay. And then I can just assemble all these dimensions like, okay, here's the time series I want to use. I want it to be months. I want these factors. I want, the number of cases sold in this channel, and I want this other dimension to be the channels. And so I want a report to come out, and I want to create a visualization that breaks this into, segmented, bar charts that, deliver it all. And I can literally, in the middle of a board meeting, I can quickly assemble that, press a button, and present a graph to the board that represents the answer to the question. And so that was BI 10 years ago. Right. That's when, the world of Looker, which is the Google product that does this. And there's Tableau, and there's a bunch of others. Domo is another one. Yep. You mentioned a couple. Those are at risk now. They do have this nicety of being able to, quickly use the already existing data stores of a corporation and generate these visualizations for data analysis and decision support. But now AI can do that too. GPT-4, you can just dump all that information to them. Let me step back. Maybe you need to go to Google to get the larger 1 million to 2 million context window in order to truly do it on the fly and dump all that data in there. But it's going to do something more than what the business intelligence systems do today. The business intelligence systems don't predict. That was the biggest part of my job at LifeAid every year when we're doing the budgeting and forecasting for a future year. Is try to take all that information that I've got and using graphics, try to figure out, okay, where do I think this is going to go? This business channel of distribution and these products in that channel, where do I think that's going to go in the next year? I had to use my mind to do that. Now, AI can do that predictive analysis in a way that's similar to the way that my human reasoning was applied to the assembled data. And that's where we are today. So yeah, I think BI and those systems are going to be replaced. But again, it's none of these things happen in a 1 year time frame. It's going to require a lot of education internally in those companies to use the tools, and there's going to be other productizations of the capabilities of the large language models that are the subject of startups and new businesses, and even Microsoft delivering these kinds of tools using now the underlying OpenAI tools, and Google providing those. Like Google will transform Looker and its services into something that incorporates AI very, very quickly. I'm sure of that. So that's where we are. And AI is going to replace business intelligence systems as we know them by doing all of those things, plus predictive and prescriptive reasoning. And those are the two terms of art that you talked about there. Prescriptive meaning not just this is what's going to happen, but this is what you should do before it happens in order to acquire the best market share you can in your market space.
And I wanted to just touch on that really quick. I'm sorry, Beth, just really quick on that, and I'll step out of the way. But like you mentioned, the 4 types of data analytics. I think it's important. I threw it up on the screen here: descriptive, then diagnostic, then predictive, then prescriptive. And the reason why it's important to see this and understand this is that I will tell you, just based on everything you said, Andy, what we ran in over and over again with, as far as a pain point with clients we work with or potential clients, was that they all wanted prescriptive. Back in 2017, 2018, everybody called that machine learning. I want machine learning. I want machine learning, because that was the AI term that everybody was using, right? We don't still do, but now because of generative AI, that we use AI in different ways as well. But they wanted machine learning. And ultimately what we'd find out is that they wanted prescriptive up in the upper right, but their data was not ready for descriptive or diagnostic, or they were at bare minimum at diagnostic. And so, we would run into time again where people were saying, I wanted to tell me what I should do, right? I want predictive and prescriptive analytics. We all should want that, in our daily lives to help us out. But oftentimes what we would find over and over again is that the data, there wasn't any less volume of data. And if anything with AI, our volume of data is going to yet again explode. Because now as we bring in video and audio and these other things that were not relevant, not that they weren't relevant, we had no way of managing them. And now we do with AI. Now the data is going to 4, 10, 20, 60x again. And so what's going to be so important as people go back to this chart and go, I want predictive, I want prescriptive analytics, and I wanted to look at all my data and all my video and all my audio. And we're going to say, yes, Halamat Analytics, we can do this, right? But it's really going to come down to, so a lot of what you were saying, Andy, about where's your data? How are you currently organizing your data? What types of, naming conventions you're using and all that stuff. And so data governance, once again, is going to play a massive role, I believe, in the future of this, because it's going to have to. Sorry, Beth, go ahead.
So there are 2 points that I want to make, because we're talking about data that's collected and delivered, but we're not talking about data that is literally streamed live. You mentioned something sort of close to that with your port story, right? But if we're looking at the Andy sort of product, you can test the data, right? Like you can look at how much time there's a sensor watching people watch, right? Look at the cans in the grocery store and how long they look, and like those kinds of things. Like that kind of information can come in and be incorporated and shifted right away. So you have this opportunity to make really rapid shifts within the context of your data. I am not sure that is current, but it's not different than Tesla's driving around making decisions about driving, right? Like the collection of this kind of real-time data to make real-time decisions is something that is existing, but just in very specialized sections. The second point that I want to make is that this makes agentic analysis more important, because there has to be an agent talking about the confidence that they have in the analysis, because all of that needs to be incorporated in the delivery of the analysis for decision makers. And Dempster-Schaefer theory allows for an explicit representation of uncertainty. And so that would be combined with the rest of the analysis. And I think that that's a really important piece because, of course, that's currently missing from Google overviews, right? Like those we're seeing in real time in our real time experience, the lack of that and what that does. So those are my 2 points.
I love it.
The couple things I need to just comment on here is, as someone who has done tons of reporting to executives, to people, to other businesses, and pulling all this data, the tough thing is when you're being asked, hey, is this thing working? And then you come up with a whole bunch of KPIs, some better than others, on how to, tell the story. I honestly do not want to go into Tableau, do not want to go to Power BI. I don't want to go into Excel. I don't want to pull any of this stuff up. I don't want to go into Salesforce because it's just a time suck to try to tell a story about if things are working and some executives don't see it, or it's hard for them to comprehend, right? Or the way that they're looking at it is different than the way you're telling it. So there's also that piece. But eventually, if an AI can do this for me and tell it for me, it's like, hey, I want you to present this for me in real time. So it can go and analyze all your pieces because, right, as Beth said, it's connected to all our data. It has tasks, agentic features. So yes, sure, there's a human in the loop, me talking to it saying, I need you to pull this. Maybe I don't even need to do it. All our executives who, sorry, Andy, sometimes we think are like, is this person like real? Why is this person here? Like, the dumbest question I've ever heard from this person.
Yeah,
you talk about it, and then you're like, you get frustrated. But if you can, sometimes people need to see it and have that validation. But if you can do that, and the numbers are being pulled in real time, that is so much easier than trying to gather a presentation, presenting it, and it's just not coming through. Or you can see it when you're presenting, the eyes are rolling outside of the CFO, who's really focused just on the base numbers. Yeah. Everyone else,
is this affecting ROI?
Yeah, that's it. Everybody else, website KPIs, pipeline. I don't care. Yep. Hey, am I making more money? Is the company making more money? Blah blah blah. That's focus. Right. And so
you pull up a good point, Carl, which is that like AI makes it possible to put filters on that are based on personality and type that we've never been able to do before. To your point, I feel your pain. I've walked into rooms or virtual rooms where you are trying to do your best. You know that one of them is quote unquote a bee buster and is going to just challenge you from the first word out of your mouth. That executive is there to make your life a living, you know what. And you know it going in the door. You're like, my whole job is to stay out of their line of sight.
Focus on one person. Everybody else is useless. That one person, I'm like, please don't say anything.
I just don't want to be in your line of fire, right? So like, but you have a really good point, and what I think this is super valued is that in the future, there'll be filters for that adjust the storytelling as it should, by the way, to be more direct to that particular person. Not that we're manipulating the data. This is not a situation where we're saying, torture the data enough and it'll confess to anything. I've talked about that quote before. That I'm not saying that, because God knows with a good story you can manipulate data to tell the story you want it to tell. You can mess with your X and Y axis. You can make all sorts of things look different than what's really happening with the data. But if we get past that and the human bias of going in and saying like, I don't want to be made to look a fool. I don't want, this is against my job. If we can get past that and the human part of it actually is problematic, because not only am I having to go in as a human and worried about maybe what Jumi or Andy or Beth is going to say to me, and that's a human to human thing. It probably has very little to do with the actual data and what's going on with the business. Yes. There's all sorts of bias from both sides that are coming in. But if there's a way for me to produce and send to Jimmy what he is looking for, CFO, whatever the case is, in the way that he prefers to have it, and I can say from your point, Carl, like, I need to send out this story, but when it lands in Jimmy's inbox or whatever, and he's looking at this live data, Jimmy is getting what he needs for that data. And AI 1000% will be able to help us with that. It can now, but I think it's going to get even easier.
Yes.
And this is one of those things that's really important if you are the AI champion in your organization, if you're working with people in this context. If we look back on the Ethan Mollick and Boston Consulting Group study, the one place where AI was not helpful, was significantly not helpful, was with people who trusted the AI too much, who misunderstood what the AI was capable of doing and capable of giving. So I'm seeing a potential possibility that we might want to inoculate people about that. Hey, cool. I understand the dashboard that you've given me and the presentation that you've given me. And as long as that keeps updating, I don't need to know anything else. And somebody needs to know something else, right? Like, you can't replace Carl now with somebody who can just program a pretty dashboard. Carl knew the context of the information, the relevance of the information, what is happening in the models, right? There's just so much behind that.
The first thing I'm going to do the moment I get that voice model and the vision is I'm going to a meeting and we're going to have some fun with like an executive. Hey, I'm bringing this thing and we're going to go live. We're going to like, I want in real time. Hey, analyze this. What does this mean? And I'm like, whatever happens, but I just want to, I want to show that in real time, you have that AI assistant now that can like analyze that data, make real-time conversations. And I think that is just because you can bring it into a meeting, right? You can bring it into a meeting. So imagine turning that on, loading data and having, it's like an extra employee or your employee right there, having that conversation. And then other people can ask it and it can just have, and I think that would be a really cool, like just a use case to have everybody just have a conversation. Now, I don't know if imagine everybody brings their own AI to that meeting. I don't know what that would look like because it's like 5 people plus another 5 and everything's going on all at the same time. It's the most craziest meeting I've ever seen.
You know,
so, but is it the extra employee who like goes a little overboard with the psilocybin every once in a while, right? So you're like, they look the same. They're just seeing data that isn't like, it's important to convey what is possible and what isn't, I think.
When you talk about
I
this
think
AI,
Carl,
sorry, I was just gonna say, when you talk about this AI employee sitting next to you, Carl, you know what I think of, and Andy, you've talked about this, and Carl, you talked about RAG. We all have. I think of this AI, if it was a form, right? They're not necessarily coming into the meeting preloaded with all data. That's the latency on that is going to probably be nuts, right? So that's probably not going to be the first order of business. But if that AI assistant is sitting next to you and actively engaged in listening, I see it as them like shuffling a bunch of, I have a couple like bills on my desk here, you know, and it's like that AI is listening really intently. And it's like, ooh, they're starting to talk about, and it starts gathering papers, right? And it's like, these might come up. This is an email. This is a future of that thing. And then Andy's the CXO and he's like, I don't care, you know, because Andy was probably a real hard hitter. We could tell Andy was a hard hitter. And Andy be like, I don't care about any of that. And then AI assistant's like, never mind, putting that away. And then it gathers some more paper. It's like, and this is this virtual idea, this RAG type system or something more complex where it's always gathering and waiting or getting rid of memory essentially to always be best adjusted for whatever it feels like the conversation is going. And if we can get there, then you truly do have a partner in crime in that office that's only goal. It has zero human bias. Its only goal is to make sure Carl does as good as he possibly can in that meeting and is there to help, right?
So the one thing I think this is something that, Brian, you should try out when you have your meeting with your boss, is to have an AI there. You prompt it in a way that's like, I want you to listen, only listen, but jump in if the other person says this, or this, and this is the response I want you to. Okay, sounds good. And that'll be really funny because you're gonna put right. You're gonna be able to prompt it in a way that it gets prompted and then it responds with pre-programmed things that you want or just to touch on, right? And then it's really funny, be like, oh, that's a really good point.
And stop me from putting my foot in my mouth is what it needs to do. I need an AI assistant that jumps in with very, very low latency, and it jumps in a millisecond of time, and it goes, I know what you're gonna say, and there's nothing good that's coming out of this after you say that.
Call back to previous show. That would be an action. That would be a trigger and an instruction pairing in your in your prompt.
That's what we call a callback, Beth. Nice job.
There we go.
Jimmy, go ahead. I'm sorry, buddy. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to highlight what Carl was giving us was a use case, and I'd love to know what everyone's like. What can our audience do right now to implement AI for this Holomod analytics that you're proposing? What's that one thing that they can apply right now to their process?
I'll be quick, and I'm a broken record with this. I know Andy has asked me about this. It goes back to data, guys. It goes back to your data. What's the one thing you could do right now? What's the one thing in your control? The data that you currently have. Forget about future data. Forget about, oh, won't this be great when I'll be able to get video data and all that? You know what? That will be great one day. But if you do not come up with a plan, if you don't currently have a plan for data governance on how your data is structured, whether it's messy or duplicative or whatever, and there are plenty of AI tools and other non-AI tools to help you with this. But dang it, man, you've got to get your house in order. You've got to, because what could you possibly build off the top of this? What great AI solution could you get in the future if you don't get your house in order today? So hire that consulting, get that person who loves getting into the minutia and the data. And they're like, I love renaming things. This gives me joy to sit at my computer and organize and structure your data for you. Spend the money, get that person who loves doing that as a job, because they will go in and they will organize your house, your virtual house of all your data and where it sits. And then, what can you do with AI? Well, whatever the next thing that AI comes out with that becomes applicable, but you'll never be sitting there going, shoot, there's no way I can get any value out of this or increase my ROI, because, remember when Brian said that I didn't. I waited till the solution came out, and now I'm behind, because now I probably have to spend the next 6 weeks or more organizing my data before any of these solutions with AI are actually going to help. That would be my answer.
My answer is do it separately. So Holomod is the idea that it can all be grouped together and you don't have to separate it. But GPT-4o can handle text and audio and visual. And Gemini 1.5 Gemini 1.5 Pro can handle uploaded video. So you could actually get all of these pieces and then pull them in together as a meta-analysis. So if you want to know what this could possibly be, do it now. Just do it in stages.
Yeah, I agree. You can go to Holomod Analytics.
I'm going to say that most companies that are currently doing data analysis using business intelligence systems will benefit without any effort, because those BI systems are going to incorporate AI. But to get a taste of what that additional capability will be, I would recommend that you take the data that is the reporting output that you're currently using and feed it to ChatGPT-4o or Gemini or whatever, and ask it for its analysis of that data. So the hard, heavy lifting of organizing the ETL or extract, transform, load data into a major data store, whether that's a data lake or a data house or a database, all of that's already being done by your company, and you have data. The analysis of that data has historically been just, okay, let's put it in a nice graphic visualization so that the human interpretation of that can be good. I think you can get a much better and more insightful, nuanced narrative analysis of that by delivering that data from the BI system into one of the frontier models and build a prompt in your company now to do that as preliminary sort of review of what the numbers are telling the company.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing to build on that is some of the tools that we have now, Salesforce, HubSpot, I'm sure all of the CRMs will probably have this, is they're all promising, hey, you can chat against your data. Mm-hmm. But I haven't really seen how good that capability is to, how many leads do we have? 20, 24. Cool. But I need you to do advanced analytics of it. I need you to do set of this segment in this. To me, one of the best ways to test this stuff out is use Kaggle and use NFL data, because NFL data segments everything down to the when was the fourth quarter passes in a rainy game in Northwest regions by left-handed quarterback, like really segment it out and then ask that, because to me that can tell, like, that's really advanced analytics versus just the basic ones that people are trying to advocate for now. And maybe I'm not sure if the LLMs are, even though it says advanced data analytics, I don't know if they can pump like that, like can really get that deep into segmentation and analysis and even prediction.
I think that's a future show, personally. Join us.
We just have fun with Kaggle and just find
the Daily AI Show presents Fun with Kaggle.
And I know we're wrapping up here, but Jimmy, I will tell you, I get excited about like the Salesforce side of stuff and what Tableau will. I believe all these tools are already thinking about a lot of this, right? And they would have to be, because they're in that realm. So I get excited about the Salesforce stuff. I get excited about the near real-time data. By the way, I just want to say real-time data is a relative term. I know it sounds like literally of the instant, but when you talk to companies, you'll find that real-time for one company might be refreshing the data each day. Some might be every 15 minutes. And some fringe cases, it might actually be like every 15 seconds. Totally different use case, right? And it takes totally different infrastructure to pull that off. Not everything is refreshing data every 15 seconds. Some companies are like once every 48 hours is fine for what we do. So just want to bring that up. But geez, I lost my train of thought when I was going to say that. Shoot, I lost it. I had it and I lost it. It was there. Oh, Jimmy, I know what I was going to say. So from the video, what you do with video and analytics, I mean, I think what we're talking about here is right now with this show, we're just about to come up, shameless plug, we're just about to come up to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. And actually, if you're listening to this, you'd be really cool to help us get over that 1,000, because we're like within a week of it. So help us out. Go subscribe to us on YouTube. But what I'm going to say is, like, obviously we're always looking at the numbers in the past, no matter when, right? The show airs or the video's on there, and Jimmy and Beth, you guys will put up numbers and I'll look at the numbers. We'll say, okay, where's this going? And Carl, you've said, look, based on this, I think we can hit this threshold in 1 to 2 years. And we look at these numbers, but how cool is it going to be when it can not just bring in what's happening with our users on the data on the shows, but all this other data that might be relevant to us, the Daily AI Show, whether it's conversations we're having with, viewers or listeners, and audio. And hey, I think this audio is important, or our Slack channel communications, which would help us more cohesively, if we're the executive team, have an understanding of what we're doing on the back end and how it's directly impacting the show performance, because that gets muddy. That gets super muddy. Like, oh, we had a conversation in Slack 4 weeks ago and our numbers went up. Are we actually going to know that had a direct impact? Well, I think in the future, when all this data that's not just numbers gets brought in together, we will actually be able to connect the dots a little bit better. And going all the way back to what Carl said about like CFOs, that's when you're going to be able to walk in the room with a CFO and go, I know you only care about the ROI, but I can definitively show you where 4 weeks ago, there was a whole uproar on Slack, and there was an internal communication channel Slack, and adjustments were made from that through 7 different email chains that then went into a Zoom call, and we have the transcript on that Zoom call, and we can definitively tell you that the seed for this change in ROI came from that Slack channel, and this was the employee that kicked it off, and it has made the adjustment, and we see the analytics out the back end. That is powerful stuff. That is super powerful stuff. Obviously, I get excited about this stuff. I think excited.
Let me remind everybody that as of now, we're still at the place where we have to collect context and feed it to a frontier model, right? So we don't see a lot of examples, or I haven't yet seen a lot of examples where one of the major, more advanced reasoning large language models has a pipeline of data with enormous context window. And probably Google's going to be one of the first to do that because they're focused on that as a differentiating proposition for the Gemini line, which is this massive 2 million token context window. That makes it possible to do what you're describing. But right now, that data transport from all of those different channels into the LLM for the time of inference, that's broken. We don't see that right now.
Yep. Yeah. Look, we'll come back and talk about this more and more because, we're going to continue to see how AI can play a huge role in data analytics. And yes, maybe data analytics isn't dead, but the data analytics today is dead. And AI is going to be the big killer. And that's a good thing because like a phoenix from the ashes, you're going to see something really cool. And the companies that take this stuff seriously today, who listen to our show every single day, that's key, are going to be the ones that succeed in the future. And hey, plug here, go check out our website, thedailyAIshow.com, because what we're going to be doing, not only is there great information there and how you can interact with us on all socials, but we are launching a newsletter very, very soon. If you'd like to get in on the ground floor of our newsletter, then we think that would be amazing. You can go to thedailyAIshow.com and sign up for it. You're not going to get a newsletter right away because we haven't launched it, but as soon as we do, in the next week or two, you will be on that list. So if you want to be an early adopter, and I think there might be some cool perks, some fun things we're thinking about for the first early few. If you want to be on that list, go sign up at thedailyishow.com. We're really excited about what's coming with the newsletter. Okay, that's it for today. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about Google Gemini, but specifically Google Gemini for the workplace, what's working today, what's not working, what we hope may be working, like basically what can you do today and how would it be actually helpful to your business? So we're going to talk about that tomorrow to wrap up the week. So come on back and hang out with us and we will see you again then. We'll see you again all next week for another 5 days of amazing topics. And of course, that newsletter to come very, very soon. Till then, guys, have a good one. Bye.
Aloha.